Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Chosen One's Star Wars podcast here on Game Domain. I am your host, Jason, along with my co host, Captain. Captain.
Hello there.
So today we have a very interesting video because right now there isn't really that much Star Wars news going around. So we figured we want to get you guys another podcast out. We said we're going to try to do every 2 weeks, and we're going to have one this week, which is obviously this episode, and then we're going to have one next week, which is going to be a preview of the Clone Wars season 7, which comes out in around 2 weeks. I know Captain's very excited about that, just as I am.
Hells yes.
And we are going to be bringing you guys weekly reviews of those shows. Hopefully, after we just have to work out the timing on when the episodes are going to release of the show, and then when we'll be able to record the podcast and what day of the week we'll be able to get that out to you on. So for this episode, we thought we'd do something fun, and we're going to go into our rankings of the Star Wars movies. Unfortunately, Leo and Ricky will both not be with us tonight. It's just going to be me and Captain. Which Captain, I mean, only two there are, no more, no less. So I think this is going to work out well, following the Sith tradition led by Darth Bane.
At last we shall reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
Yes.
Yes, we shall have revenge.
One of the 26 words that Ray Park says is Darth Maul in the entire episode 1.
And still the most badass character.
Yeah, definitely. Just like Boba Fett. Boba Fett said like 5 things, but he sold the most action figures, so he gets all the popularity. So we're basically just going to go in where Captain is going to give his 11th ranked Star Wars movie. Oh, by the way, we are including the Skywalker Saga as well as the Star Wars stories, which are just Solo and Rogue One. No TV shows included in here.
Nope, we're not putting on that weird Christmas special. That's not going anywhere near us.
That does not count. And the Clone Wars movie does not count as a real movie. We're only doing live action movies here. That movie is horrible, and also it doesn't even belong on the list because it's not live action. So
you know that whole thing where the apprentice kills the master?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said you don't like the Clone Wars animated movie. Just basically keep your eyes open, man.
I mean, I love the TV show, but the animated movie, I think it has like a 17 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think that might be a worthy rating. So so we're gonna get into it, and it's gonna be 11 movies, the 9 Skywalker Saga movies, and the 2 Star Wars stories. So basically how it's going to be formatted is Captain is going to give his 11th movie, I'm going to give my 11th movie, Captain's going to give his 10th movie, then I'm going to give my 10th movie, and so on. So Captain, why don't you start off with the shocking reveal of your worst ranked Star Wars movie?
Well, it is absolutely obvious, and I will give people at home a good 3 seconds to type in the chat, not the chat, but the comments, exactly what the worst Star Wars movie ever made was. 1, 2, 3. It's obviously The Last Jedi. I do not like any of the new Star Wars movies. They've got good points, but it's more bad than good. So I'm just kind of like, whatever. But The Last Jedi, out of all 3 of them, was just the, because we'd been introduced to Luke Skywalker for like 3 seconds, and then he just tosses the lightsaber, and even Luke himself was like, no, like Mark Hamill was like, no, he's the most optimistic person in the universe. He'd be like, he'd grab onto that lightsaber, power up like Goku, and fly off and just immediately fly through Starkiller Base and destroy it. That's what should have happened, even though Starkiller Base would be gone. But yeah, he would have taken on, everything. It didn't matter the risk to himself. He would have been like, let's do it, mate. Let's form a new rebellion. Let's fist fight, General Hux, the little ginger prick. And, The Last Jedi really didn't have anything to it. It was a rehash, like most of the new movies, were a rehash of the previous movies. So, a giant battle on a white planet. Ooh, where's that come from? And obviously, a lot of the stuff that I'm saying is cliche. All of the the points I bring up are exceptionally cliche because there's only 3 good parts of that movie. The first one is the Millennium Falcon flying through the inside of Crate, because it brings back a very beautiful piece of music. The interior design of the crystal planet structure is beautiful. So I was like, yeah, that's good with that. Mark Hamill just stood there after it's so much blaster fire has been poured onto his face, and then just brushes his shoulder off, like, what are you gonna do about it? Beautiful. And then, of course, even though no one would choose this, the bit where the guy licks, and I'm pretty sure it was the director or someone, but licks the
Yeah, I
floor
think it was
and
the
goes,
director of Rogue One, I
yeah,
think.
but
Yeah.
like touches the floor and goes, salt. And I'm like, the tears of so many people commenting have just made this planet. But yeah, there was no real story to it. There was no real anything to it really. It was like a filler episode of Dragon Ball Z. It just turned up, happened, and it was all pointless, and you know, it was necessary to the story, but it was pointless to the franchise because it informed nothing. It was basically one director saying "fuck you" to another director, and then the other director came back for the other movie. So, like, what's the point? It was a pointless
Yeah.
movie. In fact, they should go back and they should reshoot episode 5. Just get it over with and make it like they should have. I'm not going to get into some, but yeah, no. The Last Jedi is my least favorite. No, is my most hated and my least favorite because it's literally just a filler episode.
All right, so now I will get into my 11th ranked Star Wars movie, or my least favorite Star Wars movie, or just as you said, my most hated Star Wars movie. I'm in the same exact boat as you with The Last Jedi. Now, I do disagree with some of the stuff you said, but completely agree with most of it. Now, I do believe that there is a significant story throughout this movie, but like you said, it is almost completely unnecessary by the way that it kind of scraps every it. And it's not even so much the like. I have no issue with Rey being a nobody, and I have no issue with them killing Snoke. I believe that was critical to Kylo's development as a character. But the main thing to me is how they treated Luke Skywalker. Ryan Johnson is a fantastic director. I
Mhm.
don't think anything poorly of Ryan Johnson because of what he did with this movie. I think he had a vision. I completely didn't agree with his vision, but that was his vision, and that was his movie. He was, tapped on the shoulder by Kathleen Kennedy to direct this movie, and that's what he's getting paid to do. He's not paid to please us, but that's what he's doing. Now,
Yeah, I think
the
that was the main thing. They were
yeah,
paid to make movies, not
yeah,
to work with the audience.
yeah. And now I do believe The Force Awakens set up a lot of things. Um, The Last Jedi kind of got rid of those things. They didn't utilize Phasma at all, who, I mean, it wasn't going to be the next Boba, but she could have been something. She could have been a good character. But just like they did in The Force Awakens, when they kept telling us, "Oh, she's going to be in the Last Jedi so much more than she was in The Force Awakens," but she just completely wasn't. She was barely in the movie at all, and then just gets the only reason to have her even in the movie is to fulfill Finn's character arc, and then which also involves Rose Tico, who, I mean, I know you didn't talk about, but probably, I mean, I don't think I dislike her as a character, not the actor. I'm not going to go and attack Kelly Marie Tran for how the character was written. She did a great job playing the character, but I just don't believe in anything the character did. The whole Canto Bite sequence was probably the most useless 30 minutes of any Star Wars movie ever.
Hmm.
Even people that I know who absolutely love the movie, and I know a lot of people who love the movie, and to their credit, that I'm glad that they love the movie. I wish I could have loved it as much as them when I walked out of the theater seeing it opening night. But that entire scene, that entire sequence, people who love the movie tell me that they skip through it when they're watching the movie again. It's because it's just completely useless. I mean, you go to find a the only person in the galaxy, right? Maz Kanata, who had no point in the movie either, other than just showing up to tell him this. It could have been any other character, but they just throw Maz in here, and she just tells them that there's one person in the galaxy who can do this. They go, they can't get that one person, and then they happen to be in the cell with the other person in the galaxy who
Yeah, just
magically
some random
happens to
guy.
know, yeah, who randomly knows how to do. I also completely didn't. I don't even remember his name, but Benicio del Toro's character. I mean, when they announced him, I was like, "Ooh, maybe he's going to be like a cool Sith Lord or something. Maybe something behind Plagueis." I mean, not Plagueis, Snoke. But then they just complete. I mean, his character, but the stuttering. I mean, it just completely wasn't needed. I mean, the whole Canto Bite scene was a complete waste. Now, I liked some of the stuff on Octo, but I mean, the cinematography of the whole movie. Beside, I'm not a big fan of the CGI for Crate. I think it looks very outdated and very fake. Like, I mean, this might be an exaggeration, but I honestly think some of the stuff in the prequels looks better than what they did on Crate. I really didn't like how the whole Crate scene looked. I mean, when Rose knocks away Finn's speeder at the end of the battle on Crate, and says that quote, I forgot the exact quote, but like save the ones that you love, don't fight what you hate. But that's exactly what he was doing, was sacrificing himself to save everybody behind him and save the one he loved. But then, and miraculously somehow he can drag her all the way across to the
Yeah.
to the base without any first order person thinking to shoot them. But the cinematography of the movie, especially the stuff on Octo, I mean, was just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. And but then it all, like, for me though, the main thing I dislike about this movie all stems from Luke. And I know we don't have that much time, so I'll just quickly go through this. But Luke is my favorite character in all of Star Wars, besides R2D2. I will say that he's my favorite human in all of Star Wars.
Yes.
But I mean, Luke is just like you said. He's the most optimistic person in the galaxy. I mean, you have somebody, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, two of the most powerful Jedis ever, two people who, kept telling Anakin to not tap into the dark side, but they're basically telling Luke, like, you have to kill him. You can't save him. You can't save your father.
Yeah.
But yet, and he says there's good in him. I can't. There's never one moment where he says, "All right, I have to kill my father," and then thinks about it, and then double thinks about it again, and then second guesses himself. He from the beginning says, "There's no way I can kill my father. There's still good in him." Once he believes the revelation that Vader is in fact his father, he completely from the beginning says that he will not kill him, and then yet he sees a little bit of dark in his nephew, and he goes in and tries to kill him. I mean, it just completely doesn't make sense. They almost take Luke's character and make him like a bad character, for like a bad-hearted character for no reason.
You kind of invert him, don't they?
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I will give the movie some credit as to how Ryan. No, in my opinion, I think the reason why Ryan Johnson did this with Luke is because how J.J. Abrams set it up is that Luke didn't want any part of anything that was going on in the galaxy. He went to this island to never be found again and to die, just like he says in The Last Jedi. So, from a Ryan Johnson standpoint, to have him say, "Oh yeah, you know what? I was wrong. I'm gonna take this lightsaber and I'm gonna come with you, and we're going to go destroy the rest of the galaxy." It wouldn't have necessarily made that much sense, but that again falls on Kathleen Kennedy, not Ryan Johnson, but that falls on Kathleen Kennedy for not having a plan for the entire trilogy. Because you have J.J. Abrams set something up that didn't really work with how they set it up of Luke being far away on the island by himself. And Ryan Johnson, as much as I disagreed with what he didn't really have a choice, because it would have looked very cliche, like, oh, really? If he just came back and fought them, which I would have liked a lot better, but would have had a lot of more criticism um, from a movie and quality of picture standpoint, not just from the fan base. But yeah, so overall, I mean, we said a lot of the same stuff, but The Last Jedi, it's just certainly not
Hmm.
a movie that I like. And I mean, I hate to say that I dislike it or maybe even hate it, and I wouldn't say this about any other Star Wars. I really think that it's down that path. And I've tried to like it. I've probably watched it at least 5 times since it came. I watched it 3 times in theaters. Didn't I liked it worse each time I saw it in theaters. And every time I watch it at home, I don't like it. I don't dislike it more. I just can't find any liking to this movie. Except the quickly before we move on, the one thing that I like from this movie, the one thing actually happens to be in my top 5 favorite Star Wars moments or scenes of all time, is when Luke goes onto the Falcon and then R2 powers on, and you have that little
Just
action,
guilt trips him.
and then yeah, and then R2 sends out the hologram with the transmission of Leia, which I think was also very touching, just because of, of course, of Carrie Fisher, and she passed
Hmm.
away before the movie came out, so it made that moment a lot more emotional. But yeah, so yeah, definitely The Last Jedi, rightfully at the bottom of both of our lists. So now, Captain, do you want to go
Yes.
into your number 10 choice, which I completely disagree with you on, but give
Well,
your
you
take.
disagree all you want, but obviously people would have been able to guess that if The Last Jedi was the top of what I hate the most, then obviously The Rise of Skywalker is right after it. Ah, God, The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know where they were going. I don't know how they thought they could get away with it, but apparently they managed to do it somehow. And I think it all stems down to the fact of they had absolutely no idea of what to do with 3 of the main characters, and that's Poe, Ray, and and Finn. They had no idea what to do with them. It's literally you've you've got to have a mission for them to properly get into, and they didn't have a proper mission, but instead had a bunch of side quests. It was literally go fetch this. Oh, we fetched this. What's this do? Oh, it reveals the location of another thing we've got to go fetch. Oh, we fetched this thing now. Oh, we've got to go to this location and like stall for a little bit, and then reinforcements are going to turn up. Oh, then what's going to happen? Oh, then we're just going to immediately win. And I'm like, right, where's the story? Where's the plot? Where's the character development? Poe's entire thing through this movie is almost gets laid. That is literally Poe almost getting laid is his entire character arc in this movie.
That look at the end of the movie.
Yeah, he turns up. He's like, "Oh, what we're gonna do?" And then he's like, "Gonna go do this with Ren." And he's like, "Right, okay." So he's at this minute, he's not really a main character. He's a side character. And then he gets to the point where he meets the weird woman on the planet, which I can't remember the name of the planet, but he meets her on this planet, and she's like, "I'm gonna kill you," and he's like, "Don't kill me," and she's like, "All right," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, you were gonna kill him? No, you're not gonna kill him. Okay." And then right at the end, everyone's like making out and hugging and stuff, and then he just looks over her and he goes, "You this? You want to get pulled? Do you?" And she's like, "Nah, that's it. That's his entire that's his character arc."
Yeah.
Finn's character arc is he turns up and he's like, "Ray, I want to bang you," and she's like, "Ah, mate, I'm too busy doing a side quest at the minute. We can't." That's it. And then he meets another stormtrooper who, because Kathleen Kennedy is a woman and believes that the Force is female, though it is not. The Force is simply an entity that exists throughout the universe that binds us together. It penetrates us in a way, I guess you could say, and it doesn't have a gender, Kathleen Kennedy, but it's a woman. So obviously the leader of the other stormtroopers is the wokest thing you could possibly have gone for, a black woman. I have no problem with the actress. I have no problem with anything. It's literally just, oh yeah, no, there's a bunch of other stormtroopers that ran away because we deserted because of you, Finn. Oh, by the way, I'm just in charge now for no reason whatsoever. Like, it would have been nice to see something on the remaining stormtroopers that signified that they kept their rank.
Yeah, that would have been a very interesting plot point, because people have said for the time that as I do kind of like Rey overall as a character, but a lot of people said that Finn having a stormtrooper who ran away from everything to be a stormtrooper, and have him being force sensitive and being a Jedi, and like the whole trilogy being about his motives and why he did that, and discovering that he could be a Jedi, that would be one of the sickest plot points in all of Star Wars. And even like the same thing with like what they had with all those ex stormtroopers. If you do something with that or build off of that, that would have been a really, really cool plot point. But
it would have been better if halfway through this movie it turned out that the entire trilogy had been about Finn. That would have been like a big plot twist, and I would have been like, yes, that's very good. But like, Rey's character arc is she is a giant child. For this movie, she is a giant child, which is perfectly shown off in the scene where Kylo Ren meets her on top of the Death Star after she's just fallen through a door that leads into like a Sith dimension, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there is absolutely nothing. She opens a door in a wall, right? And it's like the cave on Dagobah. It's got the dark side in it, but technically she would have stepped right out of the throne room and fallen off the giant tower, because that wall is not a wall that leads to a place. Because in episode 6 you can see what the tower where the Emperor sits is.
Yeah.
That wall leads into space, so she would have said magical Sith doorway powers and stuff. So I'm like, right, okay, the Sith do have weird, wacky magic technology and stuff. But then when she comes out, she falls out backwards. Kylo picks up the thing, and literally her entire dialogue is, "Give it me, it's mine, I want it, give it me." So I'm just kind of like, right, okay. And then obviously they go to the greatest named planet in existence, Testicle. They go to and I'm just like, okay, so what's going on here? And then they don't explain just which version of the Emperor we're seeing, and then Kylo just kills the Backstreet Boys, then dies himself, and I'm like, right, so basically I just sat here for 3 hours
to get something that you expected.
Nothing. I'd literally just watched some guy's fanfic of eventually Rey and Kylo getting together, and then at the end he just dies. I'm like, what? Yeah. I don't. Why? Why does he die? Why does any of this happen? Why does the Emperor shooting lightning at a lightsaber, a C2 lightsabers, and go, "Oh no, this will defeat me now." I'm like, what? My mind was literally melted watching this movie because none of it made sense. Therefore, though not as bad, because it did have some nice parts in it, especially the fact that the general who runs the First Order is called Pride, and as soon as he died, I went, yes, twice the pride, double the fall. That was very nice. The fact that the Sith troopers are pretty dope. Don't know why Star Destroyers had planet killer weapons the size of just a big cannon. That made no sense. Sure, if I explain that. There was a lot of different things, but it was just a big fetch quest, and a lot of people have said that, and it's bang on the nose because it's literally
Mm.
go to this place, go to this place, go to this place, go to this place, go, and that's like the first hour of the movie, and you can't have
Yeah.
that as a first hour in a movie. Just look at in fact, just look at episode 4. How long do we spend on Tatooine? A good half of the movie,
Hmm.
and we're just in one location going, "Oh, my parents have been killed by stormtroopers. We got amazing aim for some reason," and then these Jawas, killed by stormtroopers because they got amazing aim for some reason. That's because
Yeah.
they just don't have any good aim. But yeah, it would have made the 11th spot if the fact that the Last Jedi was nothing than a filler arc, and
Yeah.
I might actually at some point have to bump it up to share the same spot because of the ending of the Rise of Skywalker, which is hi, I'm Ray Skywalker, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're Ray
Yeah.
Palpatine.
It would have been very cool if she just embraced being a Palpatine and changed the last name into something good. So now, do you have anything else to touch on, or should I go into my number 10?
I think that if I was to touch on it anymore, I would most likely end up drowning myself. So move on to yours because I like the movie you got at 10. I like,
Yeah.
and I
So
don't know
like
why it's at 10.
exactly, if I'm not mistaken, I believe your number 10 is my number 6, and my number 10 is your number 6. So we kind of have a flip flop in this spot.
That
So
is true.
my number 10 might be a shock to most of you watching out there, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the movie because and I was telling Captain while we were in chat before the show, um if it was a greatest Star Wars movie ranking and my favorite, the two lists would be completely different. I mean, this movie that I have at number 10 is a movie that I would probably say maybe even cracks the top 5 in best, like, well-made Star Wars movies.
Hmm.
But
Definitely.
in my opinion, I just don't have any attachment to it, and therefore it finds itself in the number 10 spot. And that is Rogue One. Now, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, is a movie that I enjoy because it's Star Wars, but is a movie that I really don't. When I'm sitting and watching through the Star Wars movies and I get to Rogue One, I'm like, whatever. I guess I'll just watch it because I have to. It's almost like it's more of a chore than me actually sitting down to enjoy watching it. Now, I mean, the if the Vader scene wasn't at the end, I would probably like this movie a lot less because that scene is just one of the sickest scenes in all of Star Wars, and
Mm.
that's pure Darth Vader. Everything that we ever wanted to see him like. But the whole movie, I mean, I think the movie has a strong plot. Like I said, I mean, the movie's a well-made movie, beautifully shot. The whole Scarif sequence is amazing. The space battle above Scarif is one of the best space battles in all of Star Wars. I mean, it has that original trilogy feel, but with new CGI, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily one of my favorite. I like the movie because every movie from here on up I like. I like it minimally, and then as we get to the top, I start to like the movies more and more, and then I love them. But this movie just doesn't really have anything that makes me say, "Oh, this is one of my favorite Star Wars movies." The characters are all right. I like Jin. I never really got attached. I mean, my favorite part of this movie is seeing the cameos, like when R2 and 3PO pop up, and then or when
Yes.
Jimmy Smits comes out as Bail Organa, like that. That makes me happy. Or Mon Mothma, the actor who played her in Episode 3, who happens to look exactly like the original actor. I
Very
don't know
creepy.
how. It's incredibly freaky. It's like they're doppelgangers. Um, and yeah, like I said, all the cameos and then like Vader at the end, and then I mean the Tarkin CGI stuff was it was but The cameos were with the best part to me. I mean, it's also, we were talking about like the story of the Last Jedi being unnecessary. I mean, this movie, I liked it, and I liked the fact that they made it. But also, this story, I mean, it really is completely unnecessary because it's one of the things that we didn't really need, because it was always a mystery as to what happened right before Episode 4. How did they get the Death Star plans? And I like that they wanted to go into that, but it just didn't really work for me to say like, oh, I love this movie and I absolutely, I have an attachment to this movie. But like I said, it's a very good movie, and if I had to say the greatest Star Wars movies, it'd probably be 7, 6, or maybe even in the top 5. But in my opinion, I just don't. It's definitely not one of my favorites. So with that being said, we'll move on to Captain's number 9, which we both have a commonality in our number 9 choice,
Yes,
just as
we
we
do.
did with number 11. So why don't you go ahead?
Well, this obviously people have clocked on by now exactly what's happening. It's the Farce Awakens, and I'm calling it the Farce Awakens because it is a massive farce. This I don't know what they were thinking. So it exists here because it had a strong right. It had a strong opening. It had a very strong opening
I do agree with that.
with the way like the way they set up Finn, the way they set up Poe, the way they set up Kylo. Very good. The fact that Kylo can stop blast bolts with his brain,
Just completely badass. I mean,
yeah, and
right from the get go.
that was woof.
I mean, I
And
don't care if somebody says, "Oh, we've never seen a Sith do that before."
no,
How can
yeah,
they do that? And I mean, that it's
powers
just
change all the
insane.
time
I mean, yeah, and we've seen Vader absorb blaster bullets into his
into
mechanical
his
hand.
hand,
So yeah,
literally.
let
Yeah.
let let Kylo stop
So
a blaster bullet in that.
yeah, I'm perfectly. And I was like, those are badass. Seeing the fact that the stormtrooper, every other stormtrooper around him is just blasting kids and all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff and just mass murdering this village. And he's like, wait a minute, we shouldn't be doing this. And then he takes off his helmet and Phasma's like, mate, put your helmet back on. I didn't tell you to take it off. You're disobeying orders. And then they set up this thing of it's a good setup, and then nothing happens to the point where they're just like Starkiller Base has blown up the New Republic planets, and like, oh
yeah,
right, what's Starkiller
which we had
Base?
no relation to. What's
Yeah, we like they
going
had
on?
that. It shows the planets be destroyed, and it zooms in on that woman who I swear to God is Martha Jones from Doctor Who. I swear it is that woman, right? But it like it zooms in on her, and I'm like, all right. And then she just blows up, and I'm like, well, I'm never gonna find out
Yeah,
now. Like,
no, we never.
vaporized.
I mean,
But
even they could have went into some of the politics of the New Republic. Through the first
they
half
could
of the
have.
movie, they could have had something. They could have had Leia with them or whatnot. I mean, obviously they saved the Leia reveal to the end, which was, or not to the end, but towards the end of the movie with Han coming out and then 3PO butting in. But that was a touching moment. But if they would have, a lot of people say that the prequels had politics, and politics in Star Wars could be really cool if done right. I think the politics in the prequels was done decently, not amazing, but done decently because I am a prequel fan. But they could have very well, knowing what they know now about like what fans didn't like about the prequels, they could have easily executed like amazing Star Wars politics by going into this in the sequel show.
Well,
They neglected to do that.
all we needed in the movie was 15 minutes max of what was happening on that planet, and I don't
Yeah,
mean
just the
15 minutes.
state of the New Republic and the
Yeah,
Chancellor. That's it.
and I don't mean 15 minutes back to back. I mean like partway through the story, just jump to them going, "Oh yeah, no, the First Order is coming around, and they've been doing all this kind of
Yes.
stuff, and what we're gonna do about it, and try and then just General Hux is like, I'm Ginger, so watch me blow up the First Order. I'm like, right, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then just the point in the movie where they're like, "Look, this is Starkiller Base on that big holographic table. This is Starkiller Base.
Yeah, and
This
this
is the
is the Death
second Death
Star.
Star. This is the first Death Star." And he's just like, "Right, so it's just another Death Star." And it's like, "Yeah, but it's bigger." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
It is. It's just
that's right.
another.
That's exactly what they did.
All you have to do is once again."
Go through a little hole and blow something up.
I don't know what, and like it was funny that oh, we can't penetrate it because it's made out of metal, and I'm like, okay,
and
whatever.
and in the Star Wars visual dictionary, they show Starkiller Base and they confirm that it is the planet Ilum from the Clone Wars that we see, where that's all the Jedi's go to get their kyber crystals, because that's how the planet was powered. And you have you have a real planet like that, and I know it's now more mechanical now than man, like the quote from Obi-Wan, but more machine now than man. But the planet is basically a machine now, but it's still I mean, the basis of it, I mean, obviously we see that it's like an ice forest. So it still has the climate of Ilum and everything that Ilum had, because that's how they get the kyber crystals from the caves. But so then how is it all of a sudden able to just be completely blown up? It doesn't make any sense. It's a planet and it's just completely blown up that
Well,
easily. It's not like the Death Star where it's all where it's, completely made. That part, made me a little skeptical. It didn't really resonate with me.
well, I do understand how they blew it up. They basically, because there was an entire sun within inside the center of the planet, and
Yeah,
they just
and
shut
they
down.
went.
Yeah, so they just shut down this containment field, and then the sun was like, "Mate, gravity," and I'm like, "Right, okay." But it's like they turn up, they do some pew pew, and then I'm by the way, people are like, "This guy has no idea what he's talking about." I'm simplifying it because I don't like these movies. So yeah, so
You just
like
want to get through it.
I just want to get them over with. But Poe turns up and well, okay, let's not even talk about the fact that they light speed through an energy shield,
Yeah.
right? I
And then
don't care
happen to
what
just
people
get
say.
right up into the right up
Yeah,
onto the surface.
I don't care what people say. If you were to approach a energy shield, right? So it's a literal manifestation of energy around the planet
Yeah,
at the
the
speed of
ship should blow
light.
up just like it did in the Last Jedi.
No,
When Holdo went
it
through.
would you would literally hit it and that's it. You'd be dead because light is both particles
Yeah.
and waves. You're still going to touch something. You don't magically disappear on whatever. I'm not even going to get into that. The one thing I will, but so yeah, so it's like, oh no, what we're going to do? It's just another Death Star. All right, well, what did they do in the first one? Well, they flew down a trench, they
And blew
pew
it up.
pewed it a little bit, and then it blew up. And I'm like, right, okay. And then Finn's like, yeah, I used to work sanitary on the place, but I know the entire
I know
battle
the entire.
station layout. And I'm like, what? You basically clean toilets as a stormtrooper, but what did you just walk in and download the plans or memorize the plans or something like that? Were you cleaning the floor and went, oh look, it's the plans to the Starkiller base. Better learn them just in case I get promoted. No, so he's like, yeah, no, there's a giant square right here that if you blow it up, the entire thing will blow up. And I'm like, it makes sense, shut down the thing that holds the sun in place to fire. It blows up the planet. And then they turn up and they pew pew a little bit more. And oh, we can't damage it. It can only be damaged from the inside. And I'm like, well, good job. A bunch of people flew onto that planet, isn't it? At the speed of light. And we're not going to explain how they managed to travel through an energy shield, but and then they just blow it up. And I'm like,
Yeah. Definitely cliche.
it was more cliche than actually being cliche.
So I don't really have too much else to say because I kind of agree with everything that you said. I mean, I'll just quickly say I like I said with Rogue One. I mean, I think the movie's a good movie. I just don't necessarily like it that much. I think it's set up decently. Besides the whole Luke thing, I think everything
Yeah.
else set up kind of nicely for how Ryan Johnson was supposed to pick it up and make a good movie in Episode 8. But obviously, we know what happened there. But I mean, I like the introduction of Snoke. I mean, all Sith are these shadowy figures who we know nothing about,
Yes.
right? So when people say, "Oh, we need to," I mean, Palpatine at one point was that guy, right? Palpatine at one point was that guy. I mean, you look in Episode 5 when Palpatine shows up. I mean, if you've ever seen the original theatrical release of Episode 5, where it's the old actor with the monkey eyes or whatever, that freaky looking Palpatine,
Yeah.
when he shows up, and then when he shows up as Ian McDermott in Episode 6, we have no clue who he is. We have nothing about his backstory until we get the prequels. So that's something that's a mystery. So then when people say, they're complaining and then, we need to know something about Snoke, what The Force Awakens and what J.J. Abrams did is like set up exactly how a Sith should be set up. Darth Maul, we knew nothing about. He was just a mysteriously shadowy figure, the Phantom Menace, exactly how Palpatine was. I mean, Dooku's a little different because we found out immediately that he was once a Jedi. But I mean, with Snoke, it just sets it up like a typical Sith. That was well done. And then I think they set up all the characters nicely. You set up Finn nicely. You set up, I mean, Poe wasn't really in the movie that much, but then you could have just taken him and used him a lot in Episode 8 instead of having him running around and, being like a bambling idiot just because he's a white male. So they have to have the woman, more powerful and smarter than him because the Force is female. And then, but yeah, so it's set up things nicely. The movie itself was good, but like I said with Rogue One, I just don't really have much personal attachment to it. I mean, I like the callbacks and all the nostalgia, but other than the nostalgia, the whole movie is just Episode 4 redone.
It
It's just
is.
Episode 4 reskinned. So I mean, to me, it's nothing new. It's nothing special. And part of the reason why I like Rise of Skywalker a lot, and obviously a lot more than you, is because I think that J.J. Abrams I mean, you disagree with me on this, obviously, but I think J.J. Abrams tried to do stuff that's like really, really new and that we really haven't seen before, and kind of just completely turn things around, which I do respect and which I did think worked out pretty well in the end. But like with Force Awakens, I mean, you have Force Awakens where everyone said to J.J., you basically remade the same movie. And then the Rise of Skywalker, and everyone said, "Holy shit, what is this? This is nothing like we've ever seen before. It's the most Star Wars movie ever." So, but yeah, I like what JJ did overall, but just like I said with Rogue One, I mean, I have a lot of the same criticisms that you have, and then just like I said with Rogue One, I just don't really have any attachment to it whatsoever. I'm not a big fan.
No,
So
I just couldn't get invested in it
yeah,
in any
so
of them.
now we'll move on to number 8, and so you'll start with your number 8.
See, number 8 for me, and people will probably hate me for saying this. It's the Phantom Menace,
Mm,
and
You are a bold one.
I am a bold one. And the only reason the Phantom Menace is here is, I think, because it tries too hard. So, we had questions for episode 4, 5, and 6 of like, what is the Force? It's
Yeah.
only been told to us about,
It tries to answer every single one of those questions.
Yeah, it tries to, it tries to put too much on you at once, and to be honest, doesn't really explain any of it, to the point where the joking version, Bad Lip Reading, where Qui-Gon says it's heroin, is far more of a decent experience than. Yeah, so the only reason it is here is because it tries too hard. I love the Phantom Menace. I love I love episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and some of the stuff in between. But the only reason here is because it tries too hard. It had a really good plot. Okay, it had a good plot. It had a good story. It had good characters. Sure, it did drawn on a little bit when they were like on Tatooine. Some stuff you didn't really need, and I think it was because they had the technology to now do funky stuff. That they were like,
They
right,
definitely relied a lot on CGI.
yeah, we're going to try some stuff out because we have better computer technology now than we did when I made it with sticks and yarn and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, right, okay, no worries on that, George Lucas. I'll accept. And I did like the fact that quite a lot of it was still in fact practical, like the city of Theed, that's practical. The waterfalls that you see in Theed are made of salt. It's a very old practical effect trick to make it look like real water. That was like, that's pretty cool for all the waterfall stuff. I was like, yeah. And I don't know where they filmed in Theed. I don't know if
I think it was Italy.
it was Italy. That
Yeah.
I would definitely,
Italy and Spain. There was like
I
a
would
castle in Spain and something in Italy.
I would definitely go to those locations because they're
Oh, yes, for sure.
exceptionally beautiful. I like the fact that it sets up the Clone Wars without even without you knowing that the Clone Wars is the next
the
movie.
Clone Wars is gonna happen.
It sets it all up. Sure, we see a very weird trick, and I'm pretty sure with Darth Maul when he kills Qui-Gon Jinn, we see this weird kind of close quarters fighting with lightsaber hilts, not with lightsabers, which is kind of weird. I was like, okay, but it also introduced us to the first Grey Jedi, which was Qui-Gon Jinn, which is a guy who accepts his emotions and doesn't try to hide them, and is also, he's like, no, we've got to do this. We've got to do this good stuff. And, and Obi-Wan's like, that's why you're not on the council, Master. And he's like,
yeah,
I don't care. As long as we do what the Force wants and, help keep balance and stuff. And I'm like, he was probably one of the greatest Jedi because he was like, don't bother getting in politics or anything like that. Just focus on the Force and do the good stuff. And I'm like, that's Jedi. And they're just like, yeah, but what about the droid attack on the Wookiees? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's 2 movies from now. What are you doing for it? But yeah, the only reason it's here is it drones on a little bit too much. They try and throw in too much at once with like politics and setting up Anakin's origin story and they're bringing in the Sith for the first time in like 100 odd years or whatever, and they just literally they make this giant Scooby-Doo sandwich that they can't eat because physics is applied and you can't stretch your mouth that far. That's the only reason that the Phantom Menace is at 8 for me, is because there's just too much within not enough of a time. There is about 2 movies worth of information thrown into a single movie of like 2 hours and something odd minutes. So that's the only reason it's at 8, is because it's just too much.
Yeah. So I think our 8 and 7 are flipped, just like
Yes, they are.
10 and 6. So now I have a number 8. First of all, I just want to say before I get into my number, every movie from here on out, I can say that I like a lot, if not love,
Yep.
within as a Star Wars movie. So we're going to be, I'm probably going to be praising more than criticizing. But any criticisms we give for any of these movies, we still love these, still
Oh
like
hell
these
yeah.
movies a lot and love these movies. We just got to, for the sake of a ranking, we got to say the pros and we got to say the cons. So now, for Attack of the Clones, I mean, as much as you could say, a lot of people say this is the worst Star Wars movie besides The Last Jedi, but and I may be more inclined to agree with them in a greatest Star Wars movie ranking, but in my as one of my favorites, I think it fits at Episode 8 because I am a prequel fan overall because I grew up, in the prequel era when the prequel movies were coming out, and all the toys were prequel based, Anakin, Obi-Wan, everything.
Yep.
And Attack of the Clones, Anakin as a child was my favorite. Still, I mean, R2D2 was always my favorite character, but then my favorite human character was Anakin. And before I really grew to love Luke a lot more, but Anakin was always my favorite character, and I loved kind of the dynamic between him and Padme, even though the dialogue is bad and it's kind of cheesy. But I mean, the evolution of their love for each other and their relationship, it's necessary to the plot because when you look at it, George Lucas, when he made the prequels, had a plan as to he had a beginning, which was the Phantom Menace. They're going to find Anakin on Tatooine, and then the ending was Anakin's going to turn to Darth Vader because we know somehow he has to have kids because
Obviously.
Luke and Leia. So we know, and then he says, all right, there's going to have to be a girl that he's going to fall in love with and have kids with, but then somehow he's going to be separated from that girl, whether she lives off somewhere in the galaxy and then we bring her back for his version of episode 7, 8, 9, or whether she dies. There's going to need to be some sort of romantic interest for Anakin. So and then he uses the idea of attachment as forbidden, which I love the fact that he did this to show how Anakin turned to the dark side because that was his greatest weakness, was love. And that's really the whole story of Anakin, is that his greatest weakness is love. It's his greatest weakness on the light side because his love for Padme makes him turn to the dark side to try to save her. And then even when he's redeemed, it's love for his son that turns him back to the light and
Yes.
makes him kill Palpatine. So this movie is the birth of the entire, in my opinion, it's the birth of one of the most important plot points in all of Star Wars, and that's Anakin's worst quality, which in a way is his best quality as well, of that being love, because it turns him to the dark side and then it turns him back to the light. So that to me is my favorite part about this movie, is the whole dynamic with Anakin and Padme. And then of course, I mean, Ewan McGregor was good in the Phantom Menace, but he didn't have that much of a spotlight. I mean, he just blows it out of the park in this movie. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors. Obviously we all love him as Star Wars and most specifically as prequel fans, and that's why we are cannot wait to see the Kenobi series,
Damn
hopefully
right.
sometime next year. But I mean, Ewan McGregor just did amazing. I mean, I think the acting in this movie, minus if you look at the acting as a whole, and not so much the fact that George Lucas is not the greatest writer, because as much as I love him and he's one of the greatest, film creators, one of the greatest visionary, creative-minded people Hollywood has ever seen, he is in no way a good writer. And I think, and he even admits that to himself, he despises writing. But the fact is that he couldn't get anybody else to direct or write the movie with him. So his dialogue, I mean, the little intricate details, that stuff's not the greatest. The CGI is still a little outdated, except for the Geonosis scene at the end, not the Coliseum scene. The Geonosis Coliseum, that's outdated. But I mean, the Clone Wars, the start of the Clone Wars, that battle was amazing. I like the fight at the end, Yoda flipping around like
Yeah.
wasn't really the best choice. You kind of want to see him as always being like what he is, always like the wise Jedi. If we never would have saw him fighting, I think everyone would have been fine with it. We wouldn't have been saying, "Oh, we should have seen him fight in the prequels." But whatever. I mean, Dooku as a character was set up in this movie nicely. They keep him alive, and then
Yeah.
we see the Death Star. The Death Stars, and we see how the Death Star plans were birthed between Dooku and the people of the banking clan. With all those weird talking aliens like the Oonga Oonga guy who like doesn't even say any words, but he has the little voice thing. That guy, and then why can I always forget what's the name of the Geonosian leader? Oh, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either.
Pago the Lesser, and Pago the Lesser sitting there, and that you show that, like, he has the Death Star plans, then he gives it to Dooku, and it also sets up for the Clone Wars TV show, knowing that Dooku knows about all of Palpatine. I mean, Palpatine was very open to Dooku about everything he was going to do. I mean, Dooku could have completely sabotaged Palpatine by going back to the Jedi and saying, "Look, yeah, the Sith Lord is in control of the Senate," which he did tell Obi-Wan, but he didn't believe him. And there's a plot to destroy the Jedi, but then Palpatine just does Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith and has Anakin kill him because Palpatine's the greatest mastermind in all of Star Wars. But I think this movie set up a lot of great things for Revenge of the Sith, which is a completely fantastic movie, both subjectively because of how much I love it and grew up with it, and also objectively for, I think, everyone believes that it's a good, if not great, movie. And it sets up for that nicely. And like I said, it puts a lot of things into place that set up for the entire rest of the saga. And I think people overlook that very often. So, Captain, why don't you go into your number 7, which is the movie that I just discussed. So why don't
Yeah.
you
Attack of the
talk about it
Clones.
yourself?
I love Attack of the Clones, but I have to admit there are some janky stuff in it. Now I love it because I love Clone Boys. Clone Boys are just absolutely beautiful. I love the look of Phase Two armor, but I prefer. In fact, no, I prefer the look of Phase Two to Phase
Oh,
One. Phase
I
One's
like I like Phase 2 as well.
yeah, Phase One's what they were in Attack of the Clones, but
Yeah.
it was right. The bad points were it kind of had the same problem as Phantom Menace. It drones on. It does drone on a little bit, not as much as Phantom Menace, which
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with. But there's just stupid decisions in it, like making Jar Jar a guy of political power. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, he was
Misa Supreme.
he was somehow given the rank of general in the
Yeah.
first movie. Why is he now put in charge of basically the entire universe?
Setting up for the fall.
But I do like the fact that what they never tell you unless you extended universe is Jar Jar realizes what he's done, goes
Yeah.
home and kills himself through depression, and I'm like,
Ugh.
that's a good ending to Jar Jar.
I mean, it's a character arc. As sad as it is, it's a character arc.
He should be dead, sir. So yeah, so he's gone. But yeah, it was just my only problem with Attack of the Clones is the fact that it suffers from its predecessor of it drones on. Like you could get into it straight away. Yeah, I mean like by straight away you could spend 40 minutes minimum. No, 40 minutes maximum. Like it's setting up for the giant Geonosis battle, and then have that as like towards the end because I can't remember the runtime for Attack of the Clones. It was like an hour.
I believe it was like 2.5. It was the longest before the Last Jedi, I think.
Really,
and I don't think
it
the
was
Rise
like,
of Skywalker was longer than it. Yeah.
oh god. Okay, yeah. So that makes sense then of why I put it here and it drones on. But you had so bad that you could have literally just ended it with giant space battle, but no, it's 2 hours and 22 minutes. It could have just done so much better, but it drones on for too long. That's my only problem with it.
All right. So so now I'm gonna get into my 7, which is the Phantom Menace. I love the Phantom Menace. I like how the idea of finding Anakin on Tatooine. Metachlorians a little shaky, but I like the whole Tatooine arc. I think it's set up for the prequel trilogy nicely. I didn't like the whole really any of the Gungan stuff. I love the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, which I think is one of probably the most underrated relationships in all of Star Wars. I mean, the dynamic between them, and I mean, Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor, two fantastic actors, two of the greatest actors in all of Hollywood. They both, I mean, the dynamic and chemistry between them was just absolutely incredible. And then you see the development of Obi-Wan from, a Padawan in the beginning of the movie to a Jedi Knight at the end, getting knighted by Yoda, and then taking on Anakin as his apprentice. And it sets it up nicely to where, I mean, Qui-Gon kind of did need to die because obviously we know that Obi-Wan trains Anakin. And then once Qui-Gon finds Anakin, we know, like, okay, yeah, somehow Qui-Gon's going to have to die. and I'm just gonna quick. I agree with some of the criticisms and the praises that you said, so I'm not gonna go on too long. But the greatest, just greatest lightsaber battle, in my opinion, besides like episodes 5 and 6. Those are just like, that's because of the meaning behind those lightsaber battles. Like the Return of the Jedi lightsaber battle with Luke and Vader is my personal favorite, and then Luke and Vader in episode 5 is right after that. And those two are the best. I think we can say those two are the best because of the meaning behind it and the importance. But from a choreography standpoint, I think episodes 2 and even even Obi-Wan and Anakin at the end of episode 3, which is still an amazing fight. I think that was a little too over choreographed. I think, and then in the original trilogy, it was under choreographed because they just didn't have this right technology. I think Phantom Menace is the happy medium in between that is just absolutely breathtaking and beautiful. It looks incredibly realistic, that whole fight scene. And then, when Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon, and there's the emotion in Obi-Wan, and, almost really like his anger taking over for him, and then him killing Darth Maul. Well, not really killing him, but slicing him in half, and somehow he miraculously survives after falling down probably like 1,000 feet worth of a nuclear reactor.
Yes.
But yeah, and just like you were saying before, Captain, it's a very good movie. I love the movie. It sets up nicely for the whole prequel trilogy as a whole. I like how they did the politics in this movie. I like the whole introduction of Palpatine and how he kind of rose to power. I think it was a little convenient that it was just like, oh, a vote of no vote of no confidence for this Chancellor Valorum, and then like instantly Palpatine, has all the power in the world. I think it was a little convenient, but hey, Star Wars is full of plot conveniences, as we know.
Indeed is.
And so we can't really criticize all those plot conveniences, because if it wasn't for plot conveniences, Star Wars would definitely not be as popular as it is today. But yeah, so the movie, I love the movie. I think it's a very good movie overall. I think it gets a bad rap because a lot of people say, oh, it's one of the, it's probably like the bottom 3 Star Wars movies. I just completely disagree with that. I think people have to watch it with an open mind and realize that it's really not as bad of a movie as everyone thinks it is. And so yeah, I have it as my number 7. And now, Captain, you're going to get into your number 6, which was my number 10, and then my number 6 was your number 10. So now you guys will be hearing opposite viewpoints on 2 separate movies. So, Captain, why don't you go ahead?
Well, my number 6 is Rogue One, and the only thing I have to say, literally, I love this movie, right? But I don't like the fact that everybody dies. That's the only reason. Admittedly, it is the most Star Wars of Star Wars because it's literally, people fighting. It's like what 20 odd people fighting an entire base, and I'm like, and they almost
that's
win.
Exactly what Star Wars is.
Yeah, and they almost win, which is the impressive thing. They're just like kicking so much ass, and I'm like, yeah, go on, do it. And then the greatest backhand in existence, where Director Krennic looks up and then is immediately vaporized by his own creation. Every time that happens, me and my friends burst out laughing because it is the biggest backhand in existence. I don't care what anybody says about CGI Grand Moff Tarkin. That's an amazing feat of technology for the fact that they didn't do what they do now, where they 3D scan your face in just in case. They had to go back and reconstruct his face from old movies, right? So I'm perfectly fine with what they did. I liked it. They could have played it off where you only see him in a reflection. That would have made him a little bit more sinister if he never faced camera. But apart from that, my only criticism is everybody dies. And there are so many spots within the final part of the movie where everybody could, well, not everybody, because obviously, shot, but the main cast, there are plenty of spots in the ending of the movie to the point where they could have escaped. And then obviously, we can't have them in.
Yeah,
but you could have said that they all live through every single part of it, and then you could have had them in, episode 8 or 9. It would have been pretty interesting to kill them off then when they're old.
Yeah.
And, but
or you could do what they did with Captain Rex, and they could just point out some random fighter on Endor and say, "Oh yeah, that's
Rex." Which,
if it looks like him.
Funnily enough, before I knew Rex existed, I that was my favorite guy, because that's just an old bloke.
Yeah,
it's just
still fighting.
We're going into this forest planet. Old bloke. Oh, right. Okay. But yeah, my only problem with Rogue One is everybody dies when really the only people that needed to die was that rapper guy who somehow I can't remember his name, but he's the guy who talks to Bodhi in the ship, the other black guy. He's a
Forrest
rapper.
Whitaker, the guy that Forrest Whitaker plays.
No, the soldier guy. When they're on Scarif, and he's like, "I've got to board." He's like, "I've got to plug into the thing over there," and he's like, "Right, okay." And that all of his lines are
Oh,
just
okay, I know what you're
yeah.
talking about. Not
He's
the I think he's like the I think he's Hawaiian or something, right? He has
yeah,
like
I
that
think so. But
Hawaiian.
he's
It's
an
not
English rapper.
it's not it's the guy who goes out. Yeah, it's the guy who goes out with like the machine gun type thing after the oh, I can't remember his name either. The I'm one with the force is with me. The guy who like after that guy dies, he goes out. I think I know who you're talking about, yeah.
No, no, no. I'm talking about. He's not one of the main cast. One of the side cast just has like a little bit of dialogue. But the only reason,
Oh wait, okay, I think I do know what you're
yeah,
talking. Oh, now I know what you're talking about.
he's one of the
On the
soldiers that are
ship,
just
yeah,
out
when they
there.
yeah.
He's like a teenager. He looks like a
Yes, yes, yeah.
teenager. Yeah, he's just in that, and he was in it because he's a rapper, I think, and he's
Yeah.
English. And I was like, right, okay, if you're gonna cast, and this is what they should have done, if you're gonna attempt to do a Saving Private Ryan almost, why not just have Tom Hanks as one of the soldiers? That would have been funny as hell. Just Tom Hanks running across a beach, gets blown up by an AT or whatever they're called. That would have been funny. But yeah,
Yeah.
only problem with Rogue One is that too many people die when there are too many plot hole convenience points where they could have jumped out of death and lived to be in other movies.
Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to get into my number 6, which I'm sure you're not going to be too happy with. The Rise of Skywalker, which I have to admit I absolutely love. As somebody who's not a sequel fan whatsoever, I really like what they did with this movie. I completely understand every single criticism that I've heard about this movie. Everything that you said, I completely understand that. But to me, it's just Star Wars. It's just wrapping up the saga that has become that I love so much. That's been such a big part of my life, and I just absolutely love it for that. I think I do agree that basically the first hour, that whole stuff on Pisana, that could have been in the opening crawl, and the whole movie could have just been Kylo, Ray, and could have just been Kylo Ren and Palpatine. Now, I love the fact that they brought Palpatine back. I do believe it retcons a little bit Anakin's story, but I
Yep.
just kind of like the fact of him being the big bad villain again. I did not like the mechanical arm thing whatsoever. I wish like if it would have just been regular Palpatine, a lot of people would have complained and said, "How is that possible?" I would have rather had that than the mechanical thing that he was in. But then, of course, at the end, when he drains the life out of Kylo and Rey, that was real Palpatine. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole first half of the movie is mainly just like plot development stuff. So I'm mainly going to be talking about more the end of the movie because that's the stuff that I like. Um, the whole dynamic with Rey and Kylo, I absolutely love. I like the fact that they made her a Palpatine, which really like kills me that at the end she says Rey Skywalker because I wish she would have just said Rey Palpatine, and that would have been her version of just completely transforming that name and taking something bad into something good. And
Yep.
that's the arc of Star Wars. That's the story of Star Wars. Not to just conform to someone else's family name just because you see Luke and Leia in the distance, which to me just doesn't make any sense. But I love the whole Rey and Kylo thing. I completely before the movie I was like they're gonna redeem Kylo. I really don't want to. I hope like kill him somehow. Like because I mean as bad as Vader was, like this is a guy who just we have never really seen any. I mean we have seen some good in him, but I mean even it just the way it starts in the movie on Mustafar when he's just killing all those people and he cuts off the head of the Bulio, the spy, and he puts it on the table. I mean, that is just like that's like all right, yeah. When that happened in the movie, I was like, all right, they're definitely not redeeming him. And I never wanted them to redeem him, but how they did it, I just absolutely fell in love with, and I really really liked the idea after I saw it on screen. Um, the Han memory. I mean, I completely believe that it was. I absolutely like. I freaked out when I saw that on screen. I love that they got Harrison Ford. Obviously, they had to get him, or else they wouldn't have done it. But I love the fact that they had Harrison Ford there. I love that Han was the one to redeem his son. What I do think was in a way a little bit of a missed opportunity, even though he never met Anakin. I would have loved if that was Hayden Christensen as Anakin, kind of telling him like, "Listen, I did the same thing you did. Don't fall down the same path. There's still good in you. You can save the ones you love. Everything, everything that Anakin, that the original, the arc of Anakin always preached. I think that would have been good. Also, Luke says at the end of Last Jedi, "See you around, kid." If it was Luke, it would have worked, and if it was Leia, it would have worked. So, in my opinion, there's four characters that would have worked there, and out of all four of them, I think the one that I probably least wanted to see ended up being in the movie, but I still absolutely loved it because of how much
Yep.
I love Han Solo. But then the one, I mean, this is a little biased because R2 is my favorite character. I didn't really like the fact that R2, again, just like for the whole sequel trilogy, is kind of just sitting at the base. He's in like two scenes, like he's there when Leia dies.
Chilling.
But the fact that you have BB-8 out there and 3PO, why not have R2 out there? He's just as important as any of them. He's the reason why why Luke found them all. So carrying the message from Leia, but that's just a little biased discrepancy. But yeah, I like the movie as a whole, and then I think the whole all the stuff at the end with Exegol, and then Kylo coming back and with being redeemed and fighting alongside Rey, I absolutely love that. Really, I mean, this is probably an unpopular opinion. Now, my opinion's completely changed. But going into this movie, I didn't really like Kylo as a character. It has nothing to do with Adam Driver's acting, but I just think I just didn't like him as a character at all. This movie made me absolutely love him and really showed how good of an actor Adam Driver is and how he almost carried this trilogy, just like
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor did in the prequels. But I loved when they redeemed him, and I loved when he came back to Exegol. And then I didn't really like the Force Amazon Prime where Rey put the lightsaber behind his back and then it was there. I did love the shrug because it's exactly what Han did. I absolutely love that shrug. And then he kills all the Knights of Ren. And then when he goes in to fight side by side with Rey, I wish it would have just been them like duel. If it would have been them dueling Palpatine, even like with a lightsaber, even though the original Palpatine that we saw didn't have a lightsaber, but something other than just him shooting lightning at Rey and then it blowing back in his face. But when he drains the life out of them, I thought that was really cool. And I like that Ben is the first one to rise because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Rey's so powerful, she's a Mary Sue. She's not a Skywalker, whatever." But then Ben being the first one to rise shows that Ben really is more powerful, and that the light side, a Skywalker, is more powerful than the dark side, a Palpatine, like Rey. So
Yep.
he rises first, which a lot of people look past. He rises first, then Palpatine says, "And gone is the last Skywalker," and he chucks him off the thing, and somehow he survives. And then I love the fact that Rey like gets up to like confront him, but then I really don't like how he just completely died. So just
Yeah.
having lightning shot
Absolutely
down back
pointless.
into his face, that just completely that didn't go over well with me. But besides from those criticisms, I really liked the movie as a whole. My favorite part was definitely the stuff on Ahch-To when she went back to Ahch-To, and Luke grabs the lightsaber and says, "This is not how a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect." I mean, that was pure Mark Hamill. The Last Jedi Mark Hamill was not. That wasn't Luke
No,
Skywalker.
that
The Rise
wasn't.
of Skywalker, Mark Hamill. That is
Yep.
Luke Skywalker. This is exactly what I always wanted to see Luke Skywalker. He's the wise. Now he's the Obi-Wan of this movies, which is exactly what George Lucas wanted him to be in his version of Episode 7, 8, and 9, which Disney scrapped. But this is the Luke that I always wanted to see, the old wise Jedi who learned from everything in the past and learned from everything that happened to him. Not, I'm forgetting about everything, just like we saw in The Last Jedi. But yeah, so I love the movie a lot. Had really high expectations going into it, and I also had really high expectations going into The Last Jedi, and that was the complete disastrous disappointment for me when I walked out of the movie. A lot of people who didn't like The Last Jedi said, "Oh, I don't really care about The Rise of Skywalker. It's going to be bad anyway." I walked in incredibly optimistically, saying, "Oh, I really hope this is amazing." I loved all the trailers. Um, and yeah, and I like how they brought Lando back. I wish he would have had a little bit more of a significance, but I like him piloting the Falcon with Chewie again. But yeah, and I like the movie overall, and it finds itself at the number 6 spot for me. All right, so now we're gonna get into Captain's number 5 choice, which is the same as my number 5 choice. So I guess if we can kind of just do this togeter
I
because
think
it's the
we
same
should
anyway. So
speed
you can
run
just
the
you
next
can
two
talk
because the
and
next
then
two are the same.
yeah.
So
So
episode
yeah,
5,
you go ahead.
sorry, number 5 for both of us is Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Good points. It is literally the Clone Wars. That's the only reason I like it. It sets up Darth Vader kind of a little bit cheesily, but it still sets up Darth Vader. The ships in it, the fact that we now see the Venator class Star Destroyer, I'm like, oh, I fell in love. And it was very nice to see some of the different clone companies. We get to see the 500. We get to see the 501st a little bit in the most badass scene ever, where they just
Yeah.
massacre everyone in the Jedi Temple, and we get to see the 212th Star Corps, which is Commander Cody's group in the Utapau Orange. We get to see them as well, and it's very nice. And we finally get to see just how everything went down, and it was absolutely beautiful to just see this thing. The only bad thing I'd say about it is the fact that Darth Vader right at the end screams out no
Yeah,
he
I
didn't
completely
know
agree.
that he killed his wife. But
Yeah,
if he was that madly in love with his wife, he would have known. And
yeah,
he's in episode 2. It was kind of interesting seeing how he went from weird, creepy, rapey teenage guy to
yeah.
now dating this extremely beautiful woman. Um, and then he just kind of goes insane. And I was kind of like, it's not. I understand why he goes insane, but that's not. It should have been. It should have been done better.
Yeah.
And obviously, we do get, I think, one of my favorite lines in Star Wars, which is, "So this is how liberty dies," with thunderous applause, which I've used so many times when looking at real world political situations.
Yeah,
So,
that is true.
but bad points. It's
I'm gonna be
just
completely honest. I'm not gonna say there's no negatives
no,
about,
but there's not a lot, is
but
there?
yeah, there really isn't a lot. I mean, like before we get into the negatives, I just want to reiterate some of the stuff that you said. Some of my favorite stuff about the movie. I absolutely loved how they closed off the prequel trilogy with,
Yep.
the journey of Anakin completely to the dark side, completely setting up everything we saw of Darth Vader. I think maybe if we would have got a little bit more of him as Darth Vader in the end, maybe if like the last hour was when he was Darth Vader instead of all that setup that we got in the beginning. But I love the whole opening sequence, that Coruscant, the Battle of Coruscant, it's beautifully shot. One of the
Music is
best, yeah,
beautiful.
music of, yeah, of course, John Williams is just incredible. I mean, that's a given for every single one of these movies. Even the
Oh
Last
yeah,
Jedi,
but
which
I
I
mean,
hate, even the Last Jedi, which I hate, is probably one like my maybe in like my top three scores of all of Star Wars. That score is incredible.
but
But
it pairs beautifully with the
yeah,
action that's going on.
oh yeah, definitely. And the Revenge of the Sith, the opening scene was amazing with Grievous. I mean, of course, all the memes in this movie. That's
Oh
that
yeah.
that may be one of the best parts. Um, the whole opening sequence, basically, I mean, just everything in this entire movie, I absolutely love. And like, I really can't find that much negatives. I
Nope.
just love every minute of this movie, from the battle on Coruscant to Obi-Wan handing Luke off. And there's another thing. I mean, at the end, the fact how they wrap this up,
It was very nice.
Theron, not blown up yet. And then like the ending with, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan holding Luke and giving him to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and then looking off into the sunset at the twin suns. I mean, it's just like, it's just an incredible, it's a moment that gives you chills. It just sets up everything that we get in the original trilogy. And it's everything that a Star Wars fan could have wanted. An original trilogy Star Wars fan watching Revenge of the Sith should absolutely love every moment of it, because it sets up everything that they love from that original movie. I mean, there's not that many plot holes at the end of this movie.
No.
Most everything's set up. I mean, yeah, it's stupid that how Padme dies. She dies of, a broken heart, which I do think is another thing that's really, really um, weird and ironic. And, I mean, this is a little controversial to say, but in my opinion, proves that there is a God by how this thing in Star Wars worked. The fact that Leia's mother in Star Wars, Padme, dies of a broken heart. And in real life, Carrie Fisher, who obviously plays Leia, after she died, her mother, Debbie Reynolds, essentially died of, the doctor said,
Yeah.
of a broken heart. She had a heart attack because, and just died because like she was so broken over the death of her daughter, which I think is incredibly ironic, just, as Palpatine says. I mean, the whole Palpatine Anakin dynamic, and then, when Anakin um realizes that Palpatine is Darth Sidious, when all the Jedi realize that Palpatine's Darth Sidious, and they go to confront him and kill him. And then when Anakin, one of the most beautiful scenes in all of Star Wars, which is also completely underrated and overlooked, is when Anakin is sitting on the couch, and then Pat at the Jedi, or is sitting on the chair at the Jedi Temple, and then Padme is sitting on the couch at their home, and they're both just looking out across Coruscant, and that eerie, like not blaringly loud, low playing John Williams,
It's like some
he
sort of
just
chant.
yeah, just plays under them staring across,
And the thing
like,
is, they're
the
not they're
whole
not
city at them.
just they're not just staring in a general direction of each
Yeah, they're
other. They're
staring right at
literally
each other.
eye to eye.
And
It's
it's
just
just
very
it's
nice.
amazing. And yeah, so like I said, I mean, I really can't find that many negatives.
Nope.
I really just love everything about this movie. It sets up the original trilogy, wraps up the prequel trilogy, gives us a whole bunch of new memes, and gives us the Anakin Skywalker that we always wanted to see. That the turn to the dark side, more incredible acting by Ewan McGregor.
Yep.
Um,
And I think
Grievous is still a nice character. He's kind of overlooked in this movie. I think he's a lot more appreciated because of in the Clone Wars. And I mean, I just like the whole movie is just the evolution of Anakin. Everything he
it
does is
is.
more and more to the dark side, and it just shows how George Lucas says that the whole first six movies, it's the story of Anakin Skywalker. It's not the story of Luke. I mean, George Lucas says it himself. Anakin's still the chosen one. Anakin was always the chosen one, and Luke was just a catalyst to get Anakin to bring balance to the Force. So, I mean, I don't know. Are there any specific negatives you want to go into before we move on, or no?
I think the only negative I can think of is its heavy use of CGI and Jango Fett's head onto all the clone bodies.
Yeah,
Where, like when they take
they
it
should
would
have
have
just had a
been
real. They
better.
should have just had the real
Yeah,
actor. The
it
CGI was a little overdone.
well,
Although
no,
it
no,
looks a lot better in this movie than the other two.
they shouldn't have. What I mean is they shouldn't have CGI'd his armor.
His
Or like when Cody takes off his
yeah,
helmet,
yeah, I
it
see what you're
shouldn't have
saying.
been CGI
It should
armor.
have
It
just been
should
a
have been
real actor.
because then it would have. Yeah,
Yeah,
you would have been able to get better lighting on it. But I think the excessive use of CGI in some areas is the only problem I could find with it,
yeah,
and
I have to agree with you.
the extremely obviously choreographed fight scene at the end.
Yeah,
Though epic it is,
yes,
some of the moves that they do make no sense. That's
yeah,
those are like the only
like
bad
the
points I can
spinning
think of.
around lightsaber for like 10 seconds and then like
Yeah,
flash.
and the only reason it's at 5 is because the ones before, like 4, 3, 2, and 1, are just not that much better. But to me, and we are almost identical in the way we've done this.
Yes, I do completely agree. As
They're
just
just
like you
great
said,
movies.
yeah, and we'll move on to number 4, which is identical. Again, I think it's it's another
Yeah,
spot
it
that we
is.
have the same. Um, we both have Solo a Star Wars story, so we'll kind of do what we did with Revenge of the Sith. You'll talk about what you liked. I'll talk about what I liked, and then I mean I don't know about you, but again, I don't really find too many flaws in this movie. There's flaws where there's criticism that a lot of people have where I can understand, but in my opinion, I
Yeah.
don't view them as necessarily flaws. So why don't you start with some of the positives from this movie?
Well, the major positives are probably for me the setup of Han Solo himself. I don't care the fact that he walks up to the Imperial guy and he's like, I'm going to be a pilot one day. Like, yeah, let's
Yeah,
make you a pilot, mate. What's your clan name? And he's like, I don't have one. And he's like, Solo.
Solo.
I've got no problem with that because on Corellia, people have family names. You don't got a family name, you've got to come up with something. So the guy was
Yeah,
just like, "Meh, you're alone. Yeah, I'm not going to call you Han alone. That makes no sense.
yeah,
Solo, yeah, Han all by himself. No, that one doesn't work." But yeah, I had no problem with how he got his last name. I do like the fact that even though he never uses it in future movies, yeah, his blaster is um, multi-adaptable to the point where it's like a sniper rifle at one point and
yeah,
it's like a mini rifle at another point. I like that. I love the entire crew, even though a lot of them die quite quickly early on in the movie. Even one, I'd like to point out, one of them dies in a deleted scene, which is pretty funny. One of Beckett's crew dies in a deleted scene, which was kind of,
oh,
but
I
he went
didn't
out
even
pretty
know that.
cool. Yeah, no, on the mud planet, he just gets blown up. That's about
Hmm.
it. But yeah, I liked Beckett as a character. I even liked what's his face as Crimson Dawn, as the leader of the Crimson Dawn, not Darth Maul, but I can't remember the actor's name. He plays Vision. I can't remember his name, but I liked him as the character he played. Overall, the only problem I have with it, apart from the weird politically woke droid that doesn't need to be in the
Yeah, yeah,
movie,
completely pointless.
I did, yeah. The only problem I had was Donald Glover not
Yeah,
playing Lando, but doing a Billy D impersonation. That's the only problem I've
yes.
got with this movie.
I
There is,
I completely agree. I think Alden Ehrenreich did an incredible job as Ford or something. Like a lot of people didn't want to go see this movie because they were like, "Oh, I don't want to see anybody else but Harrison Ford by Han Solo." I think Alden Ehrenreich did an absolutely incredible job and does not get enough credit for it. I will say I like Donald Glover. I mean, I loved him on Community, and I think he's a decent,
Oh, I like Donald
musician too.
Glover.
But I really did not like how he played Lando at all. I just don't think he captured anything that
No, I
Billy D.
like.
Williams did. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that really is my main and only criticism of this movie is Donald Glover as Lando, just like you said. But some of the positives that I have, I mean, the whole movie, people can say it's useless and doesn't need to be here, but I mean, I love the whole dynamic with Han and Kira, and I think this is the definition of a Star Wars story, something that we don't need, but something that's so far from everything else that it's its own thing, and it's like its own movie. Like I could sit and watch Solo and not have to watch all the other Star Wars movies. Like if I sit down and
Exactly.
watch Attack of the Clones, I'm like, oh, I can't just watch Attack of the Clones. I have to watch The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and then I have to watch Revenge of the Sith afterwards. I can just sit down right now on my couch and watch Solo and enjoy it for the movie that it is, because it's just an action-packed. I mean, a lot of people say The Mandalorian and Rogue One is the most Star Warsy stuff we've gotten from Disney. I mean, I think The Mandalorian is the most original trilogy like Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
I think this besides The Mandalorian is pretty original trilogy Star
Oh yeah.
Warsy. I mean, it's just insane action scenes. I also still think this is the best looking Star Wars movie, probably because of how much money they invested into this thing. I mean, the whole Kessel Run stuff, I mean, that just looked absolutely beautiful.
And I
Um,
would like to point out, I do, even though everybody's like a parsec is not, a unit of
yeah,
distance. I like the fact that at the end of it, he's still
yeah,
like just did it in 12
yeah,
parsec.
12 parsec. And then yeah, and I love the whole like they say that like John Favreau said The Mandalorian was supposed to be like a Wild West type Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like a spaghetti western.
yeah, TV show. I think this is like a space western,
It
exactly just
is.
like The Mandalorian. I mean, Han, it's just they're all complete gunslinger smugglers. And then I mean the fact like at the end where they just go back and forth, like where Han, where Han says, "I was listening the whole time," and you
Oh yeah,
told
like
me,
the
I forgot the exact line he said,
yeah.
but and then he turns it right back on to Beckett. I mean, the whole dynamic between them, it's almost like a father and son type dynamic thing. And then they just kind of keep getting back at each other. And then, of course, at the end with the Darth Maul cameo, I thought that was pretty cool. And then Kira going away. And I think it perfectly set it up for a sequel, which sadly I don't think we'll get unless it's the form of a TV show on Disney Plus. Because since I think they thought the reception to this movie would be a lot better because they didn't know how bad or how bad people would view The Last Jedi. So they set it up for a sequel, not knowing that there's probably no room in their budget to make a sequel for it as much as I would want it and someone like you would want it. And I
Hey,
probably
I'd watch it as a TV
yeah, there's
show.
millions of other, yeah, I'd watch it as a TV show too. I think it would work better as a movie, but I just don't see them doing that. I think maybe as a TV show. And I mean, yeah, like Alden Ehrenreich did a great job. Amelia Clark did a great job as Kira. I mean, the Darth Maul cameo was really cool. Chewie, obviously, the origin story with Chewie I thought was pretty cool. It's a little different from. I mean, he was still in slavery, but it was a little different from him. They say that Han had to end up freeing like a bunch of Wookiees and then go to Kashyyyk with Chewie, and then Chewie like said like, "Oh, I'll come with you." That was in Legend, so this movie kind of like made it a little bit different, but still the same gist. I mean, he saved
Yeah.
Chewie, and then Chewie went back to save everyone else. Um, yeah, I just think it's very Star Warsy. I loved Han. I loved how he's also motivated by. We always see him as the charming Han Solo. He's motivated by love in this movie, just as he was in the original trilogy. His love for Leia and his as Luke and for Luke as a friend, and obviously for the Millennium Falcon. I like how it ends with him winning the Falcon, and I thought Infus Nest was pretty cool. I didn't
Yeah,
really like them
not a
at
bad
the
character.
beginning, but then towards the end they become pretty badass. The whole also I can't talk about this movie without mentioning. I can't remember his name. Who's the guy with the with like the four arms? The guy who
Yeah, the little
pilots.
monkey guy. Yeah, I can't
Oh
remember
my
him.
god, he is amazing. I absolutely favorite characters. I wish he wouldn't have died so soon. But and that whole sequence on the train, the whole train sequence, that heist,
That
that was just
that
incredible.
reminded me of Firefly.
Yeah, that was just amazing. So yeah, so I don't know if you have anything else to touch on or if we should go into
No,
our.
I think we've covered it.
All right. So now our top 3 are all um original trilogy movies, but our orders are different. for every single one. So, Captain, why don't you start off with your number 3?
Funnily enough, it's Return of the Jedi.
Mm.
And the only reason it's here is pretty much because of where it appeared in the trilogy. It was a very good ending movie. A lot of people don't like Return of the Jedi, which is kind of weird, but
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
it was a very good end to a trilogy that they'd set up because it wrapped pretty much not everything, but it pretty much wrapped everything up. It gave us one of the best memes in existence with "It's a Trap," uh, which was funny as hell. It also gave us, and I can't believe that we took this out, but the Nyub Nyub song that the
Oh,
Ewoks do right at the
I
end where they dance
I have
around. I
something to
love
touch on
that.
that that will be very controversial.
It has probably the best space battle I've seen in any movie
Yeah, definitely.
or TV show, including things like Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and all that kind of stuff. And I do like the fact that it is a perfect end. There's probably like one or two little things that you could probably say this didn't really need to happen, like the fact that the Emperor knows that they're coming because they gave out
Yeah,
that was kind of
they're
like
just
that felt
fucking minions, but
shoehorned in there a little bit, yeah. But no, it's literally here at 3 because it is the perfect end to a good series of movies that were maybe not the best thought out, as we see with the fact that at one point Luke and Leia are going to get busy, and then they realize, oh, we're brother and sister. That was obviously never planned out. So obviously the movies weren't planned out that well, but for where it comes in as a movie in the story, it fits in like a perfect jigsaw piece out of these three. It's
yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Um, so before I go on to my number 3, I just Yub Nub. I love the Yub Nub song. This is incredible. I can't believe I'm going to say this because I know I'm going to comments for this. I like the song that they put in the special editions more, only
Oh,
because I think it just goes better with the scene. It's probably my favorite track in all of Star Wars is the one that they have in now. And I just think, it fits more for when Luke looks out and sees Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda. I think that the new theme kind of fits more than just, the playful, childish yub nub. And I know I'm going to get a lot of crap from the comments for that, but I just wanted to express my own personal opinion on that before I get into my number
yeah.
3,
And but
which
when you say Anakin, do you mean the original Anakin?
I mean the Hayden Christensen Anakin. I think
Oh,
listen,
get
listen,
out!
listen, listen. The original Anakin we have no to. We never saw Sebastian Stan play Anakin Skywalker. We just saw his head. We just saw his face when his head came. I think it doesn't really make sense after they make the prequels. I think to put Hayden Christensen in there, it made sense. So
All right.
there's other special edition changes which I don't agree with. Like there wasn't. I mean, yeah, it makes sense to change Boba Fett's voice. They could have just left the original voice actor in, but they do stuff to make it fit more with the prequels. I mean, I don't agree with everything Lucas did, but he had reason to do some of it. But all right, so let's get into my number 3, which is Star Wars: A New Hope. I absolutely love, 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 love this movie. I just have it as number 3 because I think that the beginning's a little slow. Other than that, I really don't have any criticisms for this movie, just like I don't with any of these top 5 movies that we've seen. I really don't have any major criticisms of this movie. I just don't necessarily like it as much as I do 5 and 6, which will be in the spots before this, or the spots after this. Um, but the movie, I mean, it's the most influential movie in the history of cinema. I think that's a fair statement because
That
without
is.
I mean, they say that the thing that separates George Lucas from Disney is that every time George Lucas made a Star Wars trilogy, right, with the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and I'm sure he would have done something with the sequel trilogy, there was something that he did that wasn't from a writing standpoint, wasn't from a character development standpoint, wasn't from a plot standpoint. It was from an editing, special effects, direction standpoint that he completely revolutionized all of cinema within one movie. With A New Hope, the special effects in A New Hope, I mean, if that was just completely groundbreaking and it set up for everything. I mean, it completely changed movie history forever and completely changed how movies were made because of the incredible special effects that George Lucas pulled off in the original Star Wars movie, A New Hope. I mean, that's something that every single human being on the planet, even if they don't like Star Wars, never seen it, or is a diehard Star Wars fan, they have to give this movie credit for being one of, if not, like in my opinion, it is the most influential movies in all of cinema history. And now, and then you look even in the prequel trilogy, which I forgot to mention this earlier, so I'll just quickly say it now. I mean, then in the prequel trilogy with the Phantom Menace, as much as it looks outdated now, when he put all those CGI in back then, that was a revelation. I mean, that had just as big of an impact on the movie and on Hollywood as the special effects back in A New Hope did. And it's George Lucas just doing groundbreaking things that changed not only the movie that he was making, not only the trilogy that he was making, not only the Star Wars saga as a whole and as an entity, but all of Hollywood and every movie that would come after that. I mean, you look, like Jar Jar Binks was the first ever all CGI character. As much as people don't like Jar Jar Binks for how he talks, the dialogue that Lucas gave him, and people just think he's a stupid, unimportant character, which in a way he is, he's completely groundbreaking for the fact that he's all CGI and nobody's ever seen that before. And now you look at movies and 99% of the characters are CGI in every single movie because of Jar Jar. And so that's something that it started with the special effects in A New Hope and everything he did. I mean, introducing us to the greatest story of all time. A little farm boy who has a destiny to save the galaxy, but he just doesn't know it. And then an old hermit, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, now you see what we got of him, and everyone loves Ewan McGregor and wants to see Obi-Wan in action. I mean, back in 1977, he was just a little old hermit guy that nobody even knew who he was, who just comes out, who comes out and yells now the special effects, they have that crazy loud sound effect, whatever the heck he yells, the Krayt Dragon call to scare away the Jawas and or the Tusken Raiders. And you have all these characters who people would look at and say like, oh, that they mean nothing, but George Lucas takes them and they all have meaning and purpose. You have a smuggler and his little furry sidekick who end up being two of the best pilots in the galaxy and help two missions to destroy two Death Stars and take down the Empire. And then you have a little farm boy whose destiny is to bring balance to the Force and eradicate and destroy the Sith and bring peace to the galaxy. And then you have a princess who obviously is the one who already started in royalty. She could have a destiny, she already has a destiny completed from the beginning, but then she has a purpose to lead this rebellion and take down the Empire along with Luke and Han. And so it just sets up all these incredible characters and just an incredible story. And I mean this movie, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, it's not, I don't like it more than I like The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, but I just absolutely love this movie, and it gave us Star Wars. I mean, there's really nothing else you can say but the fact that it gave us Star Wars, and that's why I just absolutely love it. And yeah, I mean, I really don't think. I mean, people can say people can say there's flaws as much as they want. In my opinion, I don't see flaws in any of these original trilogy movies. I mean, they're just complete and utter masterpieces in their craft. And yeah, so now you want to get into your number two?
See, I would, but you've basically just covered everything. The only thing I would say is, like, you touched on how like George Lucas and making these movies helped push like special effect boundaries. People need to go and watch, and I can't remember if it was Adam Savage on Tested on YouTube or someone else, but they need to go and see how they managed to get the spaceships to actually appear on black backgrounds, because it was broken. Right? If we were to do that now, nobody would make a movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks to CGI and all this kind of stuff, we can just be like, oh yeah, no, we 3D model it, boom, there we go, flies through space. Back then, there are 3 different layers on top of each other every time a spaceship appears in space, right? And they all had to be hand cut. They couldn't be stamped out or anything like that. They were all hand cut out and laid over this film, right? And it was the most it was the stupidest thing ever, but it paid off.
Yeah.
And that's what, and like everything else you've just covered. So people need to go and find out just exactly, and it's not a long video. It's like 10 minutes, I think. But if they want to know just how much George Lucas pushed the envelope with this movie, go watch how they managed to put
And everyone telling
spaceships
him that
in
it would fail, like Steven
Oh yeah,
Spielberg, one of his best friends.
and then it blew up.
Yeah.
So
Um, and now we're gonna get into my number two, which so at number two I have The Empire Strikes Back. This movie, in my opinion, is the greatest Star Wars movie objectively. Obviously, there's one more movie that I like more than this movie, but I mean, this movie is just, in my opinion, like I think every single human being who's seen this movie would agree that it's probably a top five movie. I mean, everything about this movie is just absolutely fantastic. There's really no flaws, nothing wrong. I mean, there's rumors that people didn't like it initially when it first came out. I don't know if any of that's true,
I
but I
doubt it.
mean, this movie is just the main, from the scene on Hoth. I mean, the whole Wampa scene was only in there just for an excuse of why Mark Hamill had the scar that he got from the
Yeah, from his
car
car.
crash I was in. But the whole Hoth scene was amazing. You have Vader's, great entrance. A lot of people could say that's filler, but every movie has that stuff. And then, when the plot kind of splits into Luke going to Dagobah, because Obi-Wan told him, and then Han, Leia, 3PO, and Chewie, they go off on their own way and they have to go to the asteroid field. I mean, the whole chase when Vader's trying to chase them down, and then they end up going to Cloud City. I mean, the asteroid field theme playing.
Yes,
I mean,
my
don't
favorite
tell me
piece of
the
Star Wars
odds. I mean,
music.
so many great things happening in that scene. And then they get to Cloud City. You introduce us to Lando. This beautiful. I mean, I remember the first time I found out that it was a painting. Cloud City. All it was a
It's just a
painting.
matte painting.
it,
Yeah,
it's like it blew my mind as to how it was a painting, because that's how good George Lucas made it look. I mean, then you have them going to Cloud City, the whole arc with Lando, and then Lando betraying them in a way. I mean, the scene when the door opens and Vader's standing there, and being join us. It's just amazing, and it's just completely badass, and like nobody expected that. And then Vader, and then they come in, and then Han's captured, and that whole ending sequence on Cloud City, and then Lando says, we're gonna get out of here, and then that's that whole one side of the story. And I mean, I love Lando as a character too. Introducing him was amazing, and then the stuff that really, I mean, this is why people say this is the great one of the best movies. In my opinion, time. The reason why all stems from what happens on Dagobah. Luke goes to Dagobah searching for this wondrous Jedi Master that's supposed to be or it's not supposed to be, that is the wisest Jedi that ever lived. And he sees Yoda and just can't believe it, because Yoda's putting on an act trying to test Luke and test his patience. Right from the beginning, before he even speaks a word to him, Yoda's testing Luke immediately, because he knows his destiny and he knows what Luke has to do in order to defeat his father and bring peace to the galaxy, bring balance to the Force, whatever you want to call it. Yoda knows that, and he's testing him right from the get-go. And everything that goes on Dagobah, everything that comes out of Yoda's mouth is just complete wisdom. It's just amazing. I mean, you have him, that is why you fail. What's in the cave? Only what you take with you. I mean, so many incredible lines that comes out of Yoda's mouth, and just incredible scenes. I mean, the scene where he goes into the cave. I mean, that's some of the greatest symbolism in anything ever. The fact where he duels Vader, um, because Yoda tells him only what you take with you. He takes his weapons, so he sees his enemy. He sees the person that he's fearful of, the one that he's fighting, and he sees Vader, and he chops off his head. And because of that act of anger of killing him, what does he see? Himself, which foreshadows not only him possibly turning to the dark side because of him using his anger, but also foreshadowing the fact that Vader's his father. But in my opinion, the fact that Vader's his father, I think that's secondary to the point where that Yoda's trying to make by going into that cave. You take what you take with you. And it's because him having that fear, that instinctive fear of taking his weapons because he thinks someone's going to try to kill him, that when he goes into that cave full of fear with his weapons, which he shouldn't have with the weapons that he shouldn't have taken into the cave, that what comes out is exactly what he's fearful of. And then when he chops off his head, he sees himself as Vader, because that's what he's afraid of, is himself. turning to the dark side. And it's just incredible symbolism, and one of the best symbolism in all of movies. And then one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars, and in my opinion is the best like musical bit of anything ever, is when he tries to lift off the X-wing. And obviously his training is not complete. He can't do it. And, he gives up immediately and he says, there's no way I can do this. Nobody can lift that thing up. And Yoda just lifts it up in that beautiful moment, which was one of my favorite moments of The Rise of Skywalker. Luke did it to Rey. And the John Williams score plays in the background, and Yoda's lifting up the X-wing, and the loud crescendo, and the apex right as the X-wing comes into the air and drops back down, and you see Luke is just sitting there astonished as to the power of Yoda. And then Yoda tells him, "You can't go. You're not ready." And him and Ben are trying to tell him that he has to complete his training before he goes to fight Vader, or else he'll lose. And he knows, and he sees his friends that they're going to die, and he knows that he has to go there. And then the movie ends in failure. I mean, that whole sequence, you are strong with the Force, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet. And, when Luke says, I'm full of surprises because, and then Vader, impressive, most impressive. I mean, you just see they're both shocked. Luke's shocked as to how strong Vader is, and Vader's shocked as to how strong Luke is. Obviously, Vader knows that Luke is his son. Luke has no idea. Luke is fighting Vader because he's angry because he thinks that he killed his father, which, from a certain point of view, he did.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, everything in this movie, it's just absolutely incredible. All of the movie's full of symbolism and just beautiful masterpieces and writing and direction and story, plot development, the character development. I mean, every character goes through a complete arc. Han says he's leaving into becoming a general of the rebellion at the start of the next movie after he gets broken out in Tatooine. But you see, he starts off this movie. Well, he starts off this movie as a general, technically, before he says he's leaving. He got his money, he's leaving. But then in the end, he ends up in carbon freeze and, in the hands of Boba Fett. And then you look at Leia, who starts from the leader of the rebellion, and then ends up just being ends up being taken off on the out of Cloud City with Lando, somebody that she's never met before. And then Luke starts the movie as still basically like a farm boy because, I mean, he hasn't really accomplished anything other than as a pilot blowing up the Death Star. He hasn't really done much with the Force because he hasn't really been trained. And then he follows his destiny to go be trained by Yoda and be trained in the ways of the Force. And then he ends up with his hand cut off. I mean, they all go through these incredible character arcs. And then, of course, I mean, the reveal, the fight on Bespin, and then the reveal of Vader as Luke's father. I mean, there's nothing, in my opinion, there's just absolutely nothing bad about this movie. Everything is just so great. And I mean, so yeah, that's all I have to say about Empire Strikes Back. Now, Captain, we'll get into your number one. So, what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Well, it just so happens to be Empire Strikes Back.
Ah.
And the main reason I think Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie is just for the sheer amount of storytelling that happens in it. And like in episode 4, we kind of get an introduction to like everything. Basically, it's like dark side, light side. Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, all this kind. We get introduced to everything. Episode 5 focuses in on a few main points, and then forces them to the ending, which is episode 6. Not to mention, we have the greatest line in probably the most greatest and sophisticated, like cheeky line that I have used plenty of times with women, which is the whole "I love you, I know."
I mean, typical Han.
A very typical Han, and I've used that "I know" so many times to the point where it's probably my most cliched line to use. And it works in every situation. I swear to God, like if you start adapting the use of the word "I know" in specific, it works perfectly. It's absolutely beautiful. I love doing it. But also, it gave us two of my actual number one and number 2 favorite pieces of music. That's Han and Leia's theme, which we get in Cloud City. It's a very beautiful theme. And then, of course, the Asteroid Chase theme, which everybody, if I was to say, just give me a little bit of the Asteroid Chase theme, everybody like, duh, 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 duh. Yeah, everyone knows it. It's great. But we also get a first look at the Emperor. It's the first time the Emperor's appeared. admittedly in the original, kind of a creepy looking hologram dude, and then of course
Yeah.
replaced
Now we
with
see him really as Ian McDiarmid.
Rock Palpatine. But yeah, there is nothing wrong with this movie. It's paced exceptionally well. It focuses in on only the main points that we need. That is the two stories between the one group and Luke. They both they both disappear off. So they start at the same area. They go on wacky adventures by themselves, but then they end up technically back together, even though they don't see each other that much, apart from Leia shouting, "Run, Luke! It's a trap." Um, and that's like the only time we see them. It brings them all together to the point where Oh, and then of course when they rescue Luke at the end. Um, but yeah, everybody goes off, and it's like we're jumping a galaxy a little bit, but then everybody's back on the same planet, and it wipes it up and sets up Episode 6 absolutely perfectly. Plus, and I have wanted this ever since I've watched the movie, Han Solo's goddamn jacket, that weird dark blue, even though I'm pretty sure it's not dark blue, it's not even blue. I'm pretty sure it's like a grey that just looks blue on camera, which is, by the way, another special effect trick that they realized that they had to do. And that jacket was actually found quite recently. The actual jacket that Han Solo.
Oh, I think I did. Yeah, it was bought for like an incredibly.
Oh god, yeah. But yeah, like I've wanted that
imagine.
jacket ever since I've seen it. Never really wanted the pants that tuck into the riding
Yeah.
boots. I never understood that. It's a good look, but the shirt, and I don't know if it's just me, but I've kind of adopted this like late 70s, early 80s dress fashion, which I always have my button open too far. There's some chest revealed, which is kind of Han Solo's. He's got that little flap.
Yeah.
But that jacket, man, his costume, Leia's costume, they're all iconic. There's a lot of iconic, especially Luke's. Before everyone was like, "Oh yeah, no, Luke wore black." His little pilot costume, not the orange, but the grey kind of pilot suit he wears in at the fight of Bespin. Another iconic, and there's a lot of iconic stuff that happens, and it is the best because it gets down to it. It's straight to the point. It doesn't have to set up anything. It doesn't have to end anything. It can just tell a story, which is what it does. So that's why it's my favorite.
All right, and now, so we'll get into my number one, the movie that means more to me than anything, any other movie on the face of the planet. This movie is my favorite movie of all time. Not just my favorite Star Wars movie, is Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. Like I said before, Luke is my favorite humanoid character in the Star Wars saga. And I mean, this movie, I mean, you just right from the get-go, you just see, the badass Jedi Knight Luke that we all wanted to see. I mean, this is Luke fully trained, knows, he knows his destiny. He's accepted that Vader is his father. And this is the wise Luke that we didn't really see in episodes 5 and 4. Episodes 5 and 4, he was still a kid. He was still kind of childish. He was foolish. He made the wrong decisions. Obviously, we see that at the end of episode 5 when, he gets his hand cut off because of it. I mean, this is a Luke that's accepted the faith that Darth Vader's his father. He knows what he has to do. He knows his destiny. He knows he has to save the galaxy and take down the Empire. Now, I mean, the whole thing, the whole beginning, they're trying to go back to get Han. And, the whole beginning scene with on Tatooine, it opens with 3PO and R2-D2, just as episode 4 opened with. Opens with 3-2 and R2-D2. 3-2 and R2-D2.
3-2.
That'd be a combination of the two of them. 3PO and R2-D2 opens with them going up to Jabba's palace, and you immediately see. I mean, that's just another special effects thing. I mean, you look at how massive the scale of that is, and you just see these two droids and how they like filmed that and how they did that back in 1983. I mean, that's something that's easily done with you and me can probably do that on like Photoshop or something. But back then in 1983, for them to put that up in a movie, I mean, it was just amazing, and have that door slide up and open like that. I mean, the whole beginning sequence of the movie is just absolutely incredible. Going on to Tatooine, and then the whole Jabba's bar scene, and then just one of the most epic moments in all of Star Wars when Luke hops down towards the Sarlacc pit and then flips himself back up. R2 shoots in the lightsaber, and then the John Williams theme blares as Luke ignites the lightsaber, and then everyone's like, "Oh, it's green." The only reason it being green was because they didn't have the special effects capability to have the blue lightsaber on a blue sky background when they were filming that scene. But still pretty cool that it's green now. I mean, you just see how badass and how epic Lucas is his character right from the beginning of the movie, and then that kind of grows as then he goes back to Dagobah. He has to see an old friend. He goes back to Dagobah as just as Episode 5 was, where they both split. Luke goes to Dagobah, and then the rest of them go to aid the rebellion and to try to figure out how they can destroy the second Death Star. Now and then Luke goes back to um, Dagobah, and then Yoda, of course, reveals to him that yes, Vader is his father, and tells him that he has to kill Vader. He has to defeat him. And Luke says, I can't kill my own father. And then right as Yoda's dying, he says, "There is another," which of course there is another Skywalker, and of course we heard him say that to Obi-Wan. Nobody knew who that another was. Then of course Obi-Wan reveals shortly after, as a Force ghost, that it's his twin sister Leia, and of course Luke knows because he always knows from within that it was Leia. Um, he's right when Obi-Wan says to him, he says, "It's your twin sister," and then Luke thinks and he says Leia. Um, I mean, just the power of that, of knowing that they're sisters, and then that Obi-Wan and Yoda are both telling him that he has to go to kill his father, and Luke just says, "I can't do it. I can't come, father." And then he accepts what he has to do, and then when they're all down on Endor, and then they get captured by the Ewoks, who I love the Ewoks. People criticize and say it's such plaque of means. I absolutely love the Ewoks. Um, I mean, yeah, it's a little weird that they destroyed. I mean, but either way, when you have stormtroopers, when they're getting hit with logs in the head, they're gonna get out. When people say, "Oh, how can Ewoks kill them?" When they're throwing rocks, I mean, I get it that they have, but when they're throwing like massive rocks at them and it knocks them in the neck or something, obviously they're gonna pass out. And when they get hit with logs across the head, but so the everything on Endor is great, and then when Luke goes to Endor, and then he finds Leia, and he tells her that they're sisters, and then Leia says, I've always known, and then Luke tells her that he knows what he has to do, and she says, no, you don't have to, you can run away from here, but he knows it's his destiny. He knows that he must fulfill the prophecy, something that his father couldn't do. And then that whole scene on Endor when they walk out, and he's just talking to Vader, and he says, I know you were once Anakin Skywalker, and Vader says that name means nothing to me anymore, and then he says, it's too late for me, my son. And you can just see that Luke's not giving up, and then Luke goes to the Emperor, and then I mean, once he gets up in the throne room, I mean, with Luke, Vader, and the Emperor in the throne room, it is my personal favorite. What is it, 45, 30 minutes of movie ever?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have the space battle going on outside, where Lando's takes the Falcon into the Death Star. Han and Leia are on Endor trying to blow up the shield. I mean, it's just so amazing. And you have Luke, confronting the Emperor, and then everything the Emperor says to him, and the tension building up until when Luke's about to strike down the Emperor, and his anger overcomes him, and Vader protects his master. And then I mean, that lightsaber battle is just so epic, and you see Luke is refusing. Luke keeps he keeps throwing the lightsaber away. He says, I can't do it, I'm not going to fight you, father. And then once Vader says, ooh, sister, if you won't join me, perhaps your sister will. And then that with him bringing up Leia, that just completely turns Luke, and he channels the dark side, and he goes up and just completely obliterates Vader, somebody that we always look, he's so strong that he couldn't be defeated, and Luke just obliterates him. And then he's slashing and slashing and slashing and chopping his hand off. And then like we were saying before about the symbolism in The Empire Strikes Back, to me this is just another complete case of it. Probably the most, again, one of the most symbolism I've ever seen in any movie, and certainly in Star Wars, is when he cuts off his hand and he looks that it symbolizes two things. He looks in his hand and realizes that his father has a mechanical hand just like he does. They're both much more similar than he thought. And also the fact that he cut off his father's hand just as his father did to him, showing that he's becoming his father. He's becoming the thing that he feared to become. He's going down a dark path, and he's going to become you know, if he would have killed, he cuts off his father's hand just like his father did to him. He's fulfilling everything that a Sith's supposed to fulfill, and using his hate and channeling his anger to, you know, attempt to kill somebody else. And then he looks, you know, he looks at his father and he realizes that he's becoming Darth Vader. He's becoming what he feared to become. And I mean, that symbolism is just amazing. And then he throws away the lightsaber and he says, "No, I'm a Jedi like my father before me." And then Palpatine just says, "So be it, Jedi." And then he starts,
Zaps him.
yeah, then he starts just electrocuting Luke. And then Luke says, "Father, father." And then one of the worst special additions is, I mean, to me, the silence in that scene of Vader just looking at Luke, looking at the Emperor, looking at Luke, looking at the Emperor, looking at Luke, looking at the Emperor, and then once again, like we were saying, now here's Anakin. This isn't Vader anymore. This is Anakin Skywalker. And Anakin Skywalker's best quality and his worst quality is his love, and his love for his son overcomes him. And he picks up his master, and you know, now they have him saying,
No.
"No, no." But the silence was just so much more powerful and impactful. And he lifts up the Emperor and throws him off the ledge to his death, because he did technically die, because Palpatine says in The Rise of Skywalker, "I have died before," confirming that he died and is somehow back to life in whatever form. But we won't know that until
Magic.
we won't know that. Yeah, we won't know that until we get a book about it, which will probably be, you know, the main character will be that the you know, the guy who the actor from The Hobbit plays in The Rise of Skywalker. Um, so, and then just that whole, you know, he tossed him off, and then, you know, Anakin Skywalker's
Please,
saga is back.
please
And
rephrase that.
what?
He tosses him off.
Oh, yeah. He tosses him off the ledge to his death, and then so, and then, you know, when the Death Star is obviously about to blow up, and Luke knows that he has to get him off there. And what I also find kind of comical is the fact that you see Luke, who's obviously not supposed to be on the Death Star, dragging like Darth Vader, like laying on the ground, like completely powerless, and all these stormtroopers are just like running by, like having like completely not even realizing that, oh my God, why is Darth Vader being dragged across the floor by this like random kid that we don't even know who it is? And then, you know, and then just the powerful moment between Luke and his father, and he says, you know, "Let me cast my eyes upon you, my son, like with my own eyes. Take off this mask." And then he takes off the mask, and then, you know, Vader dies, and then Luke flies off the Death Star, and then it blows up. And then Han's like, "I'm sure Luke was off there." And then Leia's like, I know he feel it." And then Han's like, "Oh, okay, I don't want to get in the way of this." And then Leia says, "No, no, no, he's my brother."
Yeah, and then we get the best look ever.
Yeah, the best look, because, you know, Han's thinking, "Holy shit, you kissed him," but then he's also thinking like, "Wow, now I have a wife," because, you know, obviously that's setting up for them to get married one day, which of course eventually happens. And then, yeah, I mean, you know, just how the movie wraps up, and then Luke burning Vader, burning Vader's armor, and then, you know, Anakin becoming one with the Force. I mean, it's incredible symbolism. It's just incredibly powerful. Wraps up that trilogy, and wrapped up the saga up, and, you know, from episodes 1 through 6. And then, you know, another of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars, just Luke looking out and seeing Obi-Wan, Yoda, and his father Anakin. And, you know, that's how the movie ends.
Yep.
And it's just it's just my favorite movie of all time. And I just absolutely love everything about it. There's no flaws, in my opinion. People can say stuff about the Ewoks. I don't care. A lot of people say they don't like Return of the Jedi. I don't know how people don't like it. I can get if it's not people's favorite. But I mean, in my opinion, for everybody, it should be, in a greatest ranking, it should be in the top 5. And I don't really, it may be biased, but I don't personally think it's biased, because even though I love this movie and it's my favorite movie of all time, I think it's just objectively amazing, objectively great. And yeah, so with that wraps up our ranking of the Star Wars movies. So, Captain, I had a lot of fun with this video. I'm sure you did too. We finally, we got to express our opinions about the saga as a whole and about each individual movie. So yeah, we're gonna wrap this podcast up right now, because this was certainly a long episode, and we have to run here. But yeah, so next week we will be bringing you guys a preview of Clone Wars season 7. So we'll be diving into the 2 trailers that we've got. The one that we got back at D23, and when was that? February 2019, I think. Whenever that was, whenever D23 was. Um, the trailer that we got. Oh no, it was released at Comic-Con in February 2019. My mistake. Kenobi was released at D23 in like August or whatever. But we'll look at that trailer, and then we'll look at the most recent trailer we got that shows off the Maul and Ahsoka fight at the end. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Clone Wars season 7 a lot. I'm sure Captain, you are too.
I
And
cannot wait.
and it's definitely going to be, it's going to give us a lot of Star Wars content to cover. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we'll hoping to bring you guys weekly reviews of every single episode. We'll have another topic to go along with that, but each episode will, for the next until the end of Clone Wars season 7, we'll have a review of the latest episode, and then we'll dive into another Star Wars topic, whatever we have that's popular at that time. And just to quickly, I'm just gonna quickly read out our list. So Captain's list, 11, he had The Last Jedi. At 10, he had The Rise of Skywalker. At 9, he had The Force Awakens. 8, The Phantom Menace. 7, Attack of the Clones. 6, Rogue One. 5, Revenge of the Sith. 4, Solo: A Star Wars Story. 3, Return of the Jedi. 4, A New Hope. 2, Episode 4, A New Hope. And then number 1, The Empire Strikes Back. And my list, the worst, number 11, The Last Jedi, followed at number 10 by Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. Number 9, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Number 8, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Number 7, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Number 6, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Number 5, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Number 4, Solo: A Star Wars Story. Number 3, Episode 4, A New Hope. Number 2, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And number 1, Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Toodles.